The sky above the alien city was always gray, filled with smoke and the smell of burning metal. High walls rose in every direction, sharp and cold, as if the city itself wanted to keep its people trapped. Inside those walls, there were no smiles, no kindness, only fear and control. Among these walls lived a girl, not an ordinary girl, but one of rare beauty and strange strength. Her skin glowed faintly under the dull light. Her eyes carried colors that shifted like a stormy sea. She had once been the daughter of a respected family, born into honor, born into promise. But in this city, power never rested for long. Envy and cruelty were stronger than love. Those in control feared what she might become, and so they stripped her of everything. Her punishment was not quick death, it was worse. They dragged her through the streets, chains heavy on her wrists. Crowds gathered, not to pity her but to mock her. They shouted cruel words. They threw rotten food and broken pieces of scrap. And then, at the heart of the city, where garbage was piled into endless heaps, they cast her down. A great machine groaned above her, tilting with a thunderous crash. Broken waste and filth rained over her body. Sharp glass cut her skin, twisted wires coiled around her arms, and as the pile settled, her clothes were gone, torn away by the falling trash. She was left exposed, covered only by shame and dirt. The guards laughed, their voices cold and empty. "This is what becomes of those who think they are more than us," one of them shouted. The others joined, pointing at her broken form. She tried to hide herself, crouching low, pressing her arms against her chest. But no matter how tightly she curled, the shame burned deeper. Her glowing skin, once admired, now made her humiliation worse. Every eye saw her weakness. Every laugh carved another wound into her spirit. When the guards grew tired of mocking her, they turned and walked away. Their heavy boots echoed against the metal streets until the sound was gone. The crowd dispersed, eager for new cruelty elsewhere. And the girl was left alone, trapped in the mountain of garbage. Her breath was shallow, her tears silent. She did not cry out because in this city cries for mercy were wasted. No one listened, no one cared. She thought of her past, of the nights when her family home was filled with warmth and light. She thought of her mother's hand soft against her cheek. She thought of her father's voice, strong and kind. All of it felt like another life, another world. Now she was nothing, less than nothing, not even worth killing. Her people believed shame was worse than death, and so they gave her shame in endless measure. Hours passed, or maybe it was only minutes. Time did not move the same. In the pit of garbage, the stench was heavy, pressing down on her lungs. Flies swarmed, crawling over her skin. Her body trembled, not only from cold, but from despair. She whispered to herself, though no one was there to listen. Why did they not end me? Why leave me like this? Her voice cracked, too weak to rise above the silence, and then she heard something. Not the sound of laughter, not the march of boots. It was softer, distant, like footsteps, but not cruel. Her heart quickened, fear surged. Had they returned to throw more filth upon her? Would they drag her body through the streets again, laughing at her misery? She tried to sink deeper into the trash, trying to vanish into the shadows of broken steel and rotting waste. Her hands clawed at the filth covering herself, hiding her glowing skin. But the footsteps grew nearer, slow and careful. Someone was there, watching her. The girl's breath froze, her body pressed still, and in that moment she realized her shame was not complete. For true shame was not only in what had been done to her, it was in being seen by another in her lowest moment. Her heart whispered one desperate hope, that whoever it was would pass by, that they would not see her, that they would not look. But the footsteps stopped. They were close, very close, and the silence stretched like a blade. The girl dared to lift her head, just enough to see. And there, standing at the edge of the garbage pit, was a figure. Not alien like her, not cruel like the guards, but different, strange, with eyes that burned like fire. He was human. The human stood at the edge of the garbage pit, silent, His clothes were torn, his boots covered in dust, and his face carried the marks of long struggle. He did not belong to this city of steel and cruelty. He was an outsider, a stranger who had fallen here from the sky. His ship had crashed weeks ago, tearing through the alien clouds. He had survived. But survival was not victory. He walked the wasteland searching for food, for water, for any sign of hope. Yet the city gave him nothing except fear. Every corner was guarded, every street full of eyes that hated him. Still he pressed on because humans do not break so easily. When he looked down into the pit, he saw her. At first, he thought she was a shadow among the broken metal. But then, her skin glowed faintly, a trembling light under the layers of filth. She was curled into herself, shaking, hiding from the world. Her eyes rose just enough to meet his, and in that moment, both of them knew the other was not like the rest. The human did not laugh. He did not sneer or turn away. He felt a heavy pull in his chest, a voice whispering inside him. She should not be left like this. It was not pity alone. It was something deeper. Something that told him she deserved, more than shame. The girl's heart pounded. She wanted to crawl deeper into the garbage, vanish before he could see her. Her people had left her to rot, and now this stranger would witness her humiliation. Yet when she looked into his eyes, she found no cruelty there. They were steady, calm, and full of fire. Fire that burned not for her shame, but against the cruelty that placed her there. The human climbed down slowly, his hands brushing aside. Twisted scraps, every sound echoed, making her tremble harder. She whispered in her own tongue, words he could not understand, but he understood the fear in her voice. He raised his hands, showing they were empty, showing he carried no weapon. "I will not hurt you," he said softly. Though he knew she might not understand, his jacket was thin, torn at the shoulder. But it was all he had. Without hesitation, he pulled it from his back and lowered it to her. The girl flinched, confused, unsure why he offered it. No one in her world gave without demand, but the human pressed it forward again, his voice low. "Take it." Her hand shook as she reached. The fabric touched her skin, warm despite the cold. For the first time since her fall, she felt something other than shame. She pulled it around her body, clutching it like a shield. Tears slipped down her face, not from pain, but from a strange feeling she had never known. Mercy. The human watched her, and though she did not know his words, she understood his actions. He had nothing, yet he gave her the little he had. He was not of her people, not of her world. And yet he treated her as if she mattered, as if she were not garbage, but something worth saving. The silence stretched between them, heavy but not cruel. Her lips moved, speaking words he could not follow. But he nodded anyway, showing her he was listening. That simple act made her chest ache, for no one had listened to her in so long. Above the pit, the sound of metal boots struck the ground. The girl froze, terror filling her. The guards had returned, their voices sharp, filled with cruel laughter. They had come to check if she still lived. If she still suffered enough for their taste. The human's jaw tightened. His body tensed. He looked to her, then to the edge of the pit. He understood quickly. If they found him here, both of them would be lost. His eyes locked on hers, fierce and unyielding. "Stay quiet," he whispered, though the words meant more as a promise than a command. The girl pressed her hand against her mouth, trembling. She wanted to scream, to cry, but she held herself still. The guards' shadows passed over the pit, their laughter echoing like knives. One of them spat into the garbage, another kicked a loose pipe down. It clanged loudly, making her jump, but the human's steady hand reached out. He touched her, shoulder gently grounding her. For a moment, the fear did not consume her. The guards moved on, their voices fading into the distance. Only then did the girl release the breath she had been holding. Her body slumped, her tears falling freely. But when she looked at the human, she found herself able to breathe again. He had not left. He had not betrayed her. Instead, he stayed close, watching the shadows until the danger was gone. The girl whispered a single word from her language. It was the word for why. The human did not know the meaning, but he felt it in his bones. Why had he helped her? Why risk himself for her? He could not answer in her tongue. So he answered with his eyes. Because it was the human way. Because he could not walk away. The tunnel shook with the sound of the guards' laughter. Their weapons glowed, lighting the darkness with deadly sparks. The human stood in front of the girl, ready to fight with nothing but his body. He knew the odds. He knew he might not survive. But he also knew he would not step aside. The girl crouched behind him, her heart pounding, her body trembled, her breath came in gasps. Yet something inside her began to burn. It was not fear, not shame, but a force she had long buried. Her skin glowed faintly. Faintly at first, then stronger. The guards paused, their laughter faltering. They had seen this before long ago, and they remembered why she had been cast down. The girl's power was no secret to her people. It was the reason she had been feared. The reason she had been punished. She was born with a gift, or perhaps a curse. Energy lived inside her, wild and untamed. When she was young, it had slipped out, destroying walls, shattering stone. Her people did not see it as wonder. They saw it as danger, as shame. They chose not to kill her, but to break her spirit, to bury her gift beneath humiliation. But now, cornered in the tunnel, the gift awoke again. Her body glowed brighter, her eyes shining like burning stars. The guards hissed, fear cutting through their arrogance. "Contain her," one shouted. His voice sharp with panic, weapons lifted, beams of energy shot forward. The human moved to shield her, but he was too slow. The first blast should have struck him down, but the girl raised her hands and the air itself bent. The energy stopped, twisted, and exploded back against the tunnel wall. The sound thundered, metal cracked, stone shattered, dust rained down. The tunnel shook as if it would collapse. The guards staggered back, their eyes wide with horror. The girl stared at her own hands, trembling. She had not meant to release it, but once unleashed, the power surged through her veins, unstoppable. The human turned, his eyes wide with awe. He had felt the heat, the force, but he had also seen the truth. She was not weak. She was something far greater. The girl met his gaze, shame flickering across her face. Her lips trembled as if to say, "This is why they hate me." But the human shook his head, his voice strong. "No," he whispered. "This is why they fear you." The guards recovered, rage burning away their fear. "Kill her," one shouted, his weapon glowing brighter. The human pulled her hand, dragging her deeper into the tunnel. But she resisted, her body shaking, her power humming. She could feel the energy rising higher, begging to be freed. If she ran now, they would never stop hunting. If she hid, they would find her again and again. For the first time, she realized the truth. To survive, she had to fight. Her body straightened, her fear fading into fire. The glow spread from her skin to the walls. Around her, light filled the tunnel, blinding the guards. They stumbled, shouting in panic. The girl raised her arms, her voice breaking into a scream. Energy burst outward, crashing like a wave. The ground split, the ceiling cracked, guards were thrown back, their weapons shattered. The tunnel itself roared with her fury. The human shielded his face from the light, but he did not step away. When the wave ended, the air was thick with dust and smoke. The guards lay scattered, groaning, broken. Some fled into the shadows, too afraid to face her again. Others lay still, their armor cracked and burned. The girl's chest heaved, her body weak. The power drained her, leaving her trembling. Her knees gave way, and she fell. The human caught her before she struck the ground. Her head rested against his chest. Her glowing eyes fading, she whispered a single word in her tongue, a word that meant afraid. But her fear was not of the guards. It was of herself. The human held her close, his voice steady. "Don't fear what you are," he said softly. "You saved us." She shook her head, her tears falling. She had destroyed, she had harmed. But his words wrapped around her like a shield. To him, she was not a monster. She was a survivor. He lifted her onto his back, carrying her deeper into the tunnels. Her weight pressed against him, but he did not falter. He walked through the dark, past broken stone and flickering lights. Behind them, the city groaned, its soldiers humiliated, and somewhere far above, whispers spread. The girl had survived. The girl had fought back. The shame they had thrown on her was broken. Her secret was no longer buried. As he carried her, the human's thoughts burned. He had seen her power. He had seen her fear. And he knew the truth. The city would never let her live in peace. But he also knew something else. Her gift could not only destroy, it could save. And perhaps, it could change everything. The girl closed her eyes, her breath slow. She did not know what tomorrow would bring, but she knew this: she was no longer alone. The human had seen her secret, and instead of turning away, he had stayed. And for the first time, she felt her gift might not be a curse. It might be her strength. The tunnels stretched on like veins beneath the alien city. Dark water dripped from broken pipes, the air heavy with rust and smoke. The human carried the girl on his back, each step steady but slow. His arms ached, his body burned, yet he refused to stop. The girl's head rested against his shoulder, her breath weak. Her glow had faded, her power drained after the blast. But her eyes still opened, faint and heavy. She saw the lines of pain on his face, the sweat, the blood. He had risked everything for her, a stranger. And even in her weakness, her heart asked a question. Why? Behind them, the sound of pursuit echoed. The guards had not given up. Their voices filled the tunnels, sharp, angry, full of rage. They had tasted fear when the girl's power erupted, but now they wanted revenge. Their boots struck like drums, closer and closer. The human stopped at a crossroad in the tunnel. One path led upward, toward the city's edge, the other sank deeper into the earth, unknown and dangerous. He listened, his breath ragged, his mind racing. The upward path might lead to freedom, but the soldiers would expect that. The downward path might swallow them in darkness, but perhaps it would hide them long enough to survive. He chose downward. The girl stirred weakly, whispering a sound. He did not know, but her hand tightened slightly on his arm. It was not protest, it was trust. And so he carried her deeper, into the unknown. The air grew colder, the walls damp. The tunnels narrowed, forcing him to bend as he moved. Shadows swallowed them whole. Only the faint glow of the girl's skin lit their way. Her light was dim, fragile, yet enough to guide them. And for a moment it looked almost beautiful, like a star hidden in the earth. But beauty did not last long. The sound of boots thundered again, closer. The guards' lights flickered behind them, cutting through the dark. The human set the girl down gently, his chest heaving, his eyes burned with fire. He could not carry her and fight at the same time. This was the moment he had feared since he first saw her. He turned to face her, his voice low, steady. "You have to choose now." She blinked, confused, her body trembling. His words pressed harder. "If you run, maybe you escape, maybe you live." His fists clenched, blood dripping from his wounds. "But if you stay, we fight together." Her heart pounded. She remembered the shame, the garbage, the laughter of her people. She remembered the chains, the filth, the endless silence. And then she remembered his jacket, his hands wrapping her wounds, his body shielding hers. No one had ever stood for her, no one had ever believed in her. But this human had. Her eyes filled with tears, her voice cracked, but her words carried weight. "I stay." The human's chest rose, a faint smile cutting through his pain. He nodded once, then he turned toward the sound of the guards, his body ready. The girl pushed herself up, her legs weak but her spirit burning. Her glow began to return, faint sparks dancing over her skin. For the first time, she did not try to hide it. For the first time, she did not feel ashamed. The guards stormed into the tunnel, their weapons raised. "End them both," one shouted. The human stepped forward, his stance unshaken. He had no weapon, but he had his will, and beside him, the girl rose, her body glowing brighter with every heartbeat. The soldiers fired, beams of light streaking through the tunnel. The human dodged, his movement sharp. He grabbed a broken pipe from the ground, swinging it like a blade. One soldier fell back, his armor dented. Another swung at him, but the human ducked, striking again. His strength was not enough to win. Alone. But he was not alone. The girl lifted her hands, her voice breaking into a cry. Energy poured from her body. Not wild, not uncontrolled this time, but focused, sharp as fire. The blast struck the guards, sending them crashing into the walls. The tunnel shook, dust raining from above. The soldiers screamed, blinded by her light. The human moved with her, every strike in rhythm with her power. He fought not as protector but as partner, and together they became something the soldiers could not understand, something that fear could not break, something that cruelty could not control. When the last guard fell, silence returned. The tunnel was cracked, broken, but still standing. The girl collapsed to her knees, her glow dimming again. The human dropped beside her, his body shaking with exhaustion. For a moment, they simply breathed, side by side. Alive, her hand reached. Out trembling, she touched his arm, her eyes searching his. No words were needed. He had chosen her, and she had chosen him. Their fates were now bound together, and the city above would soon learn that what they feared most was no longer hiding. The night in the alien city was colder than the day. The garbage pit grew quiet. Only the buzzing of insects and the crackle of distant machines filled the air. The girl sat trembling under the thin jacket the human had given her. Her body was weak, her spirit torn, but for the first time she was not completely alone. The human crouched nearby, his eyes watching the shadows above. Every sound made him tense, every flicker of light made him ready to move. He had lived like this since his ship crashed, always alert, always hunted, always on the edge of survival. But tonight was different. Tonight he was not watching only for himself. He was watching for her. The girl studied him from the corner of her eyes. His face was tired, his skin scarred, his clothes torn. Yet he did not look broken. There was a strength in him that confused her. Not the strength of muscle or weapon, but the strength of someone who refused to give in. She wondered why he had helped her, why he had risked his life for someone his kind did not even know. Her voice came out soft, broken, words in her tongue, trembling like the wind. The human tilted his head, listening. Though he could not understand, her hand touched the jacket, then pressed against her heart. Her eyes met his, searching for meaning. The human's lips curved into a faint smile. He tapped his chest, then nodded slowly. She did not know the word for it, but she felt the message. Kindness. The girl had grown up in a world where kindness was weakness. Her people believed mercy made one fragile, but this stranger showed her something different. Kindness was not weakness, it was power, a power that shook her more than cruelty ever had. She tried to stand, but her legs gave way. The human caught her before she fell. His arms were steady, strong enough to hold her even in her weakness. She stared at him in shock, her breath caught in her throat. He set her down gently, careful as if she were made of glass. The touch was simple, yet it carried more comfort than she had felt in years. He looked around the pit, searching through the scraps, pieces of cloth, broken containers, anything that could help. At last he found a piece of fabric, torn and dirty but still whole. With patience, he tore it into strips. He dipped them in the small flask of water he carried, precious water he could not spare, and he began to clean the wounds on her arms. The girl gasped, pulling back at first. Her people never touched each other like this. To care for another's wounds was unheard of. But the human's hands were careful, gentle. Every move spoke of patience. He did not flinch at the dirt or the blood. He worked until the cuts were wrapped, until the bleeding slowed. Her eyes filled with tears. She wanted to ask him again, why, but she did not have the words. Instead, she whispered softly, almost a prayer. And though he did not know the sound, he felt the weight of her gratitude. When the wounds were covered, the human leaned back. He looked at her and gave a short nod as if to say, "You will survive." It was not a promise made with words but with will, and somehow she believed it. Above the pit, voices drifted faintly through the night. The guards had returned to their posts. Their laughter echoed from a distance, sharp and cruel. The girl stiffened, fear running through her body, but the human placed a hand against the ground, a signal for silence. His eyes narrowed, watching the shadows move. Then he looked back at her, calm and steady. His gaze told her they would be safe as long as they stayed hidden. Minutes passed. then hours. The city above grew quieter, its lights dimming as the night deepened. The girl leaned back against the pile of scraps, her body exhausted. Her eyes grew heavy, but her heart would not let her sleep. She had lived too long in fear, too long in pain, yet the warmth of the jacket, the bandages on her arms, the steady presence beside her, all of it pushed back the darkness, even if only for one night. The human did not sleep. He sat with his back straight, listening to the world. His thoughts wandered to Earth, to the people he had lost in the crash. He did not know if he would ever return, but he knew this. If he did nothing here, if he walked away, he would no longer be human, and that was something he could never allow. The girl stirred, her voice weak but steady. One word slipped from her lips, halting, broken. It was not from her tongue, but his, she whispered. Why? The human froze, his heart jolting. She had tried to speak his language, even if only one word. He looked at her, eyes burning, and though he did not answer aloud, she saw it in his face. Because humans fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. The night stretched on, heavy and endless. But within the pit, two lives had changed. An alien girl who had lost everything, and a human who refused to lose his soul. And between them, a bond began to grow, fragile but unbreakable, a bond born, not of power, not of fear, but of a small kindness. The night did not stay quiet for long. The alien city never truly slept. Its machines roared, its lights flickered, its soldiers marched. The girl sat close to the human, her body wrapped in his jacket, her eyes still shining with fear. She thought the darkness would hide them, but the city was alive with watchers. A sudden shout broke the silence. Harsh voices echoed above the garbage pit. The guards had returned, not in twos or threes, but in groups. Their armor clanged as they moved, their searchlights cutting through, the shadows like blades. The girl froze, terror taking her breath. She had seen this before. Once they returned, they never left without blood. The human's jaw tightened, his eyes scanning the walls. He knew what was coming. He had seen soldiers on Earth, but these creatures were worse. They did not march for duty, they marched for cruelty. If they found the girl alive, they would destroy her slowly, and if they found him, they would tear him apart. He reached for her hand, firm and steady. Her skin was cold, trembling. She looked at him, confused, but he pulled her close. His eyes told her what words could not. "We run." The guards shouted again, this time louder. Their light swept closer, their boots pounded like thunder. The human led her through the pit, climbing over rusted metal, sliding through gaps between broken pipes. She followed, weak but desperate, her breath sharp. Every movement sent pain through her body, but she did not stop. Not while he still pulled her forward. Above them, the soldiers dropped down, metal slammed against metal, shaking the ground. The girl cried out, but the human hushed her. He pressed her against a wall of broken steel, waiting. As the guards scanned the area, the lights passed inches away, heat burning against their faces, but the shadows hid them for one moment more. Then a sound betrayed them. The girl's foot slipped against a shard of glass. The crack echoed too loud in the stillness. The nearest guard snapped his head, his eyes glowing red. "There!" he hissed, his voice sharp as a blade. And the hunt began. The human pulled her again, this time faster. He darted between heaps of garbage, his body moving with practiced speed. The girl stumbled, but he never let go. Behind them, the guards shouted, their weapons sparking with deadly light. Bolts of energy blasted through the trash, explosions showering sparks into the night. The girl's chest burned, her legs screamed. With pain, she wanted to collapse, to surrender, but his grip would not allow it. His strength dragged her forward, his will stronger than the fire behind them. For the first time, she saw what made him different. He was not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most powerful, but he refused to stop, even when death closed in. They reached the edge of the pit. Above them stretched a broken tunnel, half buried, leading into the city's underbelly. The human boosted her up, his hands steady despite the chaos. She scrambled inside, pulling herself onto the cracked floor. Then she reached down, her arms shaking, helping him climb after her. The tunnel was dark, damp, filled with rust and dripping water. The girl's heart raced, every echo of their footsteps like a drum. The human pressed a finger to his lips, urging silence. Together they moved deeper, into the tunnel. But the guards were not far behind. Their boots clanged against the walls, their growls carried through the dark. The girl whispered something in her tongue, her voice trembling. He could not understand, but he knew what she meant. They would not escape easily. The tunnel split into two paths, one leading deeper into darkness, the other curving upward. The human paused, listening, thinking. Then he chose the downward path. The girl followed without question, trust rising where fear had once been. They crawled over broken grates, waded through shallow pools of black water. Every turn brought them closer to safety, or closer to death. Behind them, the sound of pursuit grew louder. The guards had not given up, they never gave up. The human's breath came hard, sweat dripping down his face. He glanced at the girl, her body weak, but her eyes burning with determination. He realized she was not only surviving because of him, she was surviving because she wanted to, because deep inside she had not yet surrendered. Suddenly, light exploded in the tunnel ahead. The guards had found another entrance, cutting them off. The girl gasped, stumbling back. The human stepped in front of her, his body tense. He had no weapon, only his fists, only his will. But he stood tall, shielding her from the glowing eyes of their hunters. The guards laughed, their voices echoing like monsters in the dark. "Look," one sneered. "The human protects the broken one." Their weapons hummed, ready to strike. The girl's hands clenched, her body shaking, and in that moment something stirred deep inside her. A spark, a power hidden beneath shame. The tunnel fell silent after the battle. Only the crackle of broken weapons and the drip of water remained. The human sat with his back against the wall, his chest rising and falling. His body was bruised, cut, and bleeding, but his eyes still burned with fire. The girl knelt beside him, her glow faint but steady. She looked at him with wide eyes, still shaken by the fight. He had risked everything, not once, not twice, but again and again, and each time he chose her. Her people had left her in shame, but this stranger, this human, gave her worth above. Them heavy footsteps shook the ground. The city had felt the blast. The rulers had sent more soldiers, stronger than before. They would not allow her rebellion to spread. They would crush it now, with force enough to erase her name forever. The human knew what was coming. He stood, swaying slightly, but refusing to fall. He looked at the girl, his voice steady though his breath was ragged. "This is it," he whispered. "They will not stop, not until one of us is gone." The girl's hands trembled. She remembered the garbage, the laughter, the shame. She remembered her own people turning their eyes away, leaving her broken. For so long, she had believed their lies, that she was worthless, dangerous, cursed. But the human's eyes told her something different. They told her she was strong. They told her she mattered. And now, she would prove it. The tunnel roared as soldiers poured in, dozens of them, armored and armed, their voices filled with hate. The girl stepped forward, her body glowing brighter with each breath. Her shame melted away, her fear turned into fire. She was no longer hiding. She was no longer broken. The human moved beside her. He held nothing but a shattered pipe, his blood staining the floor. But his stance was unyielding. His presence gave her strength, and together they faced the storm. The soldiers charged, weapons blazing. The human leapt forward, swinging with desperate force. He struck. He dodged. He refused to fall. Each strike he landed was small compared to their power. Yet his will carried him through, because humans did not bow. Humans did not surrender. The girl raised her hands, her voice rising in a cry. Light exploded from her body, brighter than the city above. The energy poured from her like a river. The walls shook, the ground split, soldiers were thrown back, their armor cracking under the force. Still more came, shouting, screaming. But she did not stop. For every step they took, she pushed them back. For every weapon raised, she shattered it with her light. The human fought at her side, his movements rough but fearless. He was not faster than them, not stronger, but he never gave in. And the girl saw it, the truth of his kind. Humans were not special because of strength or power. They were special because they refused to break. The battle raged, the tunnel almost collapsing. The girl's power burned hotter, brighter. For the first time she controlled it, not the other way around. Her shame had become her weapon, her curse had become her strength. And beside her, the human showed her what that strength was for. At last, silence fell. The last soldier collapsed, their armor smoking. The air was thick with dust, the ground broken, but the two of them still stood side by side. The girl's chest heaved, her body trembling, her glow dimmed, fading into soft light. The human dropped to his knees, his strength gone. But when she turned to him, he smiled, faint but real. "You see," he whispered, his voice weak but steady. "You were never worthless." Her eyes filled with tears. She touched his face gently, her voice breaking. "They called me shame," she whispered. "But you called me strong." Above them, the city's alarms echoed. The rulers would send more. The war was not over, but something had already changed. The guards who survived would carry stories back, stories of the girl who rose from garbage and fought with light, stories of the human who stood with her when no one else would. The girl looked at the human, her heart burning with a strength she had never known. She had been abandoned, broken, and left to rot. But in her lowest moment, a human had lifted her. He had given her his jacket, his strength, his will, and now she would carry that fire with her. Together they stepped toward the light at the end of the tunnel, not as victim and savior, but as allies. The girl no longer walked in shame. She walked in pride, and the human, bloodied and broken, still walked with her. Because that was what humans did. They fought, they endured, they lifted others even when they could barely stand themselves. And so the story of the alien girl and the human began, not in victory, not in peace, but in defiance. In a world that sought to break them, they had chosen to stand. And the galaxy would one day remember that when all else had failed, a human gave hope to the hopeless, and together they became something unstoppable,